Good evening. Welcome to the April 2024 Suffolk Wetlands Board meeting. Grace, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Chairman Davenport. Board Member Durner.
Here.
Board Member Eberwein.
Here.
Board Member Hazelwood.
Here.
Chairman Hinshelwood.
Here.
Board Member Hotchkiss. And Board Member Vroman.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And I think it's a little crazy. I think Darius, he may show up late, but we'll get going in the meantime. The policy of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the City of Suffolk is clearly stated in the Virginia Wetlands Act as follows: shall preserve and prevent the despoliation and destruction of wetlands within its jurisdiction while accommodating necessary economic development in a manner consistent with wetlands preservation. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which there were no minutes of the last meeting, were there?
So we did have some minutes, but essentially just stated that we did not meet a quorum.
We did not have a meeting.
Yes, correct.
So there shouldn't be any problem. I guess we do need to have a voice vote.
Yep. So we'll do, is there any comments or concerns related to those minutes before the voice vote? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes.
Tonight we have a public hearing. The VMRC 23-2872 submitted by Peter Stutz of HGS LLC. Property owners for a permit to construct a living shoreline with two spurs, 110 and 75 linear feet in size, two breakwaters each, 173 linear feet in size, and 960 linear feet of revetment. The living shoreline will be planted with spartina, antiflora, and patens landward of the spurs and breakwaters that will abate wave energy and channelward of the revetment. This project does not qualify for a general permit. I'm assuming that's because of the fetch on this. Okay. The properties are located within the reserve at Cedar Point. So, we opened a public hearing, and do we have anybody that wants to speak in favor of the project?
Hi, my name is Peter Stutz. I work for HGS LLC, which is a subsidiary of RES. We're the nation's largest environmental mitigation service provider. And I want to say thanks to Grace and the city planning staff, as well as all of you for coming out tonight. We are developing this site. As I said, we're the nation's largest mitigation service provider. Our business is environmental mitigation, environmental credits. We became interested in this site for a nutrient bank, TMDL reduction bank. The way we develop credits for those banks is by identifying sites that are creating a lot of sediment that reaches the bay. We get credits for the amount of sediment that we prevent from reaching the bay. And we had an extensive search across Virginia, but especially in the James. And I have to say this site is probably in the worst shape of any site that we saw per linear foot across the state. It's about 1,000 feet of shoreline, steep vertical face, about 20 feet high. And the average erosion rate across the site, across the project area, is 4 feet a year. There's one spot that's eroding at about 8 feet per year. So we found the site, saw that obviously something had to be done, and approached the landowners at the time. It was Sepco LLC, who they were developing the project, developing the property as a residential development. Since we contracted with Sepco, a few other landowners have joined in the mix. And we're really excited to get underway. With me tonight is Mark Hudgens with HANA Engineering. He is the lead designer on the project, and also Kelsey Gray, who works with me at Res. She's our technical lead for the project. So that's just a little bit of background for the project, and if you have any more technical questions, I'm gonna probably pass it on to them, but I guess I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak in favor of the project? Okay. Anybody like to speak against the project? Nothing. Okay. Well, I guess that will conclude the public hearing at this point. And we have a discussion of the board, or do you want to do a presentation? Your presentation?
If you would like staff to give a quick overview, I can do that.
If you could, please, just to refresh. I know he gave us a good background just a second ago, but maybe some of the details of the project would be nice, Grace.
Yes, so some of you may recall that we received previously 2 joint permit applications for this specific property. The first JPA we received, or this board heard, May of 2022. Originally, it was to place fill to grade the bank and then to place riprap channelward of mean high water to be able to abate that wave energy. At that meeting, the board did mention that they wanted the applicant to look into potentially establishing a living shoreline and potentially installing breakwaters. The application was tabled for 30 days, and then subsequently, the applicant then withdrew that application. The second JPA for the site was submitted just to stabilize only 3 of the specific lots, kind of toward the center where the erosion was occurring the worst. Majority of that proposal was all within the 100-foot RPA buffer, so therefore it didn't fall within this wetlands board jurisdiction. Ultimately, that one was not approved, and they did not move forward with that request. So this request is before you today. It's the 3rd one that we have for the property. Essentially, the property owner hired Res, and they looked at establishing a living shoreline and breakwaters. More specifically, the proposal, let me see if I have. So this is the subject property here. Here is the erosion that's occurred over time. So you can just see where, I believe there are some areas where the bank is, 20 feet in height. So it's pretty dangerous along the edge there. Here's some pictures of the beach, primarily at low tide. So this is the exhibit that I'm looking for. So the proposal includes 2 spurs, which are going to be the breakwaters on either end. They are breakwaters, but they are referred to as spurs because they do tie into the proposed revetment that's going to be at the bottom of the bank. Then you have 2 other breakwaters out within the water there. So that's essentially to break up that high energy that is experienced from the waves during storm events. The revetment is proposed along the bottom of the bank for 960 linear feet. That revetment is proposed to be there during those hurricane events when a lot of that wave action kind of breaks over those breakwaters and makes it past that, especially during high tide within this area. Then on the exhibit, you can see the I believe it's an orange in the 2 green areas. That is where there's various types of marsh and wetlands grass that'll be planted. The green section consists of that wetlands, but essentially the orange portion is going to consist of some, salt, scrub, brush, landscaping that'd be appropriate within that area. Then if you go landward toward the top of the bank, the slope is going to be 10-1. That consists of the 100-foot RPA buffer, which is not within this local board's jurisdiction, but the applicant did include that information just to kind of get a general scope of the project. But that will be reestablished fully in accordance with those regulations. So here's some close-up channel word of the revetment. So the area where the wetlands will be established will be graded to a slope of 3-1, which would be appropriate for that area. There is going to be spacing between the breakwaters to ensure that everyday tidal flushing can still occur, so that way naturally everything can continue. So you kind of see where they're not proposing any or to reestablish any of the wetlands, kind of where that spacing is. So the yellow is just essentially where that sand fill will be placed. The hope is that with the breakwaters to abate the wave energy, that the living shoreline can become established. Currently, as you saw in the previous photos, it doesn't currently exist. Here's another close-up. The construction access is going to be located across 3 of the parcels located in the middle. They are going to get the equipment down there to place majority of the fill. And then here is some kind of close-ups of the breakwaters and spurs themselves. They are going to be approximately 6 feet in height. So you can kind of see what that side view would be with the breakwater and then the living shoreline behind it. And then here's some additional information related to the revetment. Like I said, it's just going to be at the base of the bank. So ultimately, staff has reviewed the application and they find that it's appropriate for this specific location given the high wave energy and the erosion experienced at this bank. So therefore, staff does recommend approval of VMRC 2023-2872 with the conditions listed below, which does consist of ensuring that they receive all the proper permitting from the Army Corps of Engineers prior to any land disturbance, getting a land disturbance permit, and also getting approval as it relates to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area. And that concludes my overview. If you have any questions.
And I was digging through here to look for the schedule. Is there one listed in here?
Yes, it's a good one.
Yes, so we do have a schedule. So all of the work should be completed by November of this year. And I believe that's related to grant funding, but the applicant can get into greater details related to that.
Okay. So we're going to be done by, just for my knowledge, or common knowledge, the rest of that site, when I looked at it back the first time this permit came, they were going to go all the way around the corner there. What does that look like along that creek in there? Are those banks stable in there? As you go around the corner, was that Bleakhorn?
Yeah,
Creek?
Bleakhorn Creek.
You know, where all the forest is. I haven't, I went back there 2 or 3 years ago and looked at all that, but I didn't go this particular time because it wasn't part of this project. I was just interested in it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
There is erosion on the northern end of the development. It's not as extreme as the project area we looked at, and it's also in proximity to the bald eagle's nest, which presented a permitting challenge for us. So we didn't pursue that portion.
And the other thing that, while you're up there, please, while I was doing the site visit with you, you mentioned that this whole thing was going to be put into an easement.
That's right.
And could you explain a little bit of that to us, or maybe provide me with the statute for Virginia or whatever it is so that
I don't
I
have
can
the statute
educate
on hand.
myself?
as I said, we are developing this project as for TMDL nutrient credits. And primarily it will be a retail bank for us. So we'll develop the credits and then we sell them to an end user. So developer developing somewhere else within the watershed has to, if they can't mitigate on-site, they have to
Yes.
purchase nutrient credits off-site. So to establish that bank, we place a deed of restrictions on the property, which exists in perpetuity. RES will be directly responsible for maintenance and monitoring for 10 years. If anything were to happen, a large storm event or something like that, the bank becomes unstable, we are responsible for repair. After a period of 10 years, once it's completely stabilized, we turn it over to a long-term steward who will continue to monitor in perpetuity. We fund an endowment at the beginning of the project, which will pay for that long-term steward and then also provide some money in case of a major disaster in the future.
So this is basically establishing a new wetlands bank because, right?
That's, yeah,
Okay.
it could be, yeah.
Because there are very few. I think when we were looking at that a couple of years ago, there are very few.
Now, it's not for wetland credits, it's for nutrient credits, but it's similar idea, yeah.
Okay, and I know this is outside our jurisdiction, but when you have this easement, are those homeowners going to be able to put docks and piers out there?
They will, and that's explicitly in the deed of restrictions. Of course, they'll have to follow through any permitting as they would have in the first place.
Since that's going to go across a project like this that may be affecting the wetlands, again, that you're actually going to be increasing, how's all that going to work? Or I know VMRC has autonomy for docks and piers, but if it's going to be going across a project such as this, are there going to be any impacts to wetlands when they do that?
So typically, piers and docks are exempt from local wetland board action, and the proposal goes through
Affect the
VMRC.
wetlands.
Yeah.
And we don't have a VMRC rep here today?
We do today.
Oh, we did? Would that come into play at all? Thank you.
Afternoon. So, like Grace kind of stated in the statute, there's some regulations in regards to Wetlands Board's jurisdiction for piers. In this case, depending completely on surveys regarding riparian area, it could be out of Wetlands Board's jurisdiction because they're statutorily authorized that you can pier out into navigable water.
So they could peer out past these revetments?
They can apply for it, but it would be a little tricky.
I mean, I'm just wondering how that affects the stability of that
Sure.
project. I don't know, just,
It would be hard to say without seeing drawings and things exactly which impacts would be taken on this project post-construction.
okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Any questions, comments, discussion?
Second?
Okay, we'll go ahead and do a voice vote.
Implicit that it's with the conditions that
Yep,
you
with the
specified, yeah.
conditions. Mhm. Okay, Board Member Durner,
Approve.
Board Member Eberwein, Board Member Hazelwood,
Yes.
Chairman Hinshelwood,
Yes.
Board Member Vroman.
Yes.
Chairman, the motion passes with a vote of 5-0.
And I'd like to just say that my tenure here at the Wetlands Board, I don't know, I've been on it a long time, but the past 2 or 3 projects that have been brought before us, I think have been a real benefit to the waterways of Suffolk.
This one in particular.
Yeah, and even the Oyster Castle that came up, a year or so ago. So it seems like, I don't know whether it's between the developers or the contractors or the city or the Wetlands Board, but it all seems like it's helping our community and the rivers with the things that we're seeing being brought to us over the past few years. So I'm kind of excited because the first few years I was on the board, it was very contentious and there were very poor projects. But things have changed a lot, and it's very encouraging. I think City of Suffolk, you probably ought to mention it so that some of the citizens know some of the great projects that we're doing here to help with the waterways. And I think this is a great one. And I appreciate you coming, Mr. Stutz, and presenting this to us. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's the most comprehensive,
Yeah.
presentation plan that I've seen in my time.
So I think we've come a long way since I've been on the board and seeing these projects. And this is one that I think is very worthy, and like I said, past 2 or 3 of them have been.
Well, it makes our job easier.
It does.
And the staff did a great job of checking it and putting the conditions in, and, just made our job a lot
Site visits,
easier.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on. Do we have any restoration hearings? None. Permit extensions? None. Old business. Weren't we supposed to get some updates on that Oyster Castle project?
Yes, as of right now, I have nothing to report to this board. I know the permit is good for 1 year, so we're due to check in with the applicant to kind of see where they are. I would think that they would have been done with the project, so I'll make sure to reach out.
New business? None. Compliance inspections? None. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I second. Thank you.